Continuing on with this Azure Functions project, last night when I left off, it wasn't in a completely working state and I had some troubleshooting to do and I needed to troubleshoot away from the live stream because I was having to deal with secrets and make sure that they were correct. And uh, I was able to get everything working. Um, so uh, I did some additional things today and I wanted to just kind of go over all the things that I fixed yesterday and the other stuff I've done today, um, this morning. So, ooh, it looks like my VS Code is not visible, which is entertaining. It's just the mouse. Okay, let me try that again. It's probably because I had to reboot and the reboot process, I didn't start that back up. So have to start VS Code with disabled GPU for the window capture to work on it. All right, so there we go. Uh, the When I left off, the add and remove scripts weren't working. The reason for that was in my utilities Twitch client. There is a area where there is user underscore ID. This right here, I'm setting the hub topic to set the subscription registration request over to the Twitch API. And in here, I had this as IR instead of ID. So it was failing because of that. Another issue was that uh, down here, I did not have a wait set on read from async. So it was just failing super fast. Because you have to await on an asynchronous call. Um, Actually, it's this wait that I was missing on response body, uh, which was once I got that all straightened out, everything started to work. Adding and removing subscriptions worked. I was able to add myself, remove myself using that JSON file that we worked through before. So another thing that I did is I added the PowerShell Live channel itself and the PowerShell Live Twitter account. If for whatever reason we start doing some kind of broadcasts on that channel, um, now we'll be able to get notifications for that. Uh, so the other thing that I did in preparation for the work that I did today is to create this scripts folder and move all of the um, PS1 files into it out of the top level. So I moved them into there, and then I created this invoke Twitch subscription PS1 file, and it's basically just a copy paste of the invoke Twitch subscription. There was one minor fix where I was missing error action stop here, so it wasn't actually catching. Um, and I've got some code in here to launch this using the function secret from an environment variable. And that way it can run inside of an Azure DevOps task um, and work with the secret from the task there. And then I also kind of redid the output here. Um, so it's not much different. I just rearranged how the output was and changed this to error action stop, and then told this to run with the environment variable function code. So I got that all up and running there, and the next step for me then was to figure out how to do a build and release pipeline with the Azure Functions, which was something that I hadn't done before. So in Firefox here, I my Azure DevOps instance, or organization and this project for the Twitch stream notifications. I created a couple of builds. The first build is this one, Twitch stream notification build. If we look at how this is defined, it's just first of all, it's running on hosted VS 2017 um, instance, and it's just pulling from the Twitch stream notifications master, uh, and then it's got a couple of tasks over here that it runs. So .NET Restore um, pretty much restores all of the packages that need to be run, and then .NET Build. I could have done like all of these in one thing and just in .NET Publish and it would do all of them, but the benefit of separating these out in the different tasks is that when they run in the Azure DevOps build thing, and you'll see this when we look at one of the example builds, it separates them out so that you can see them and they're not all one giant monolithic log for the entire task. So separating them out just makes it a little bit easier to see. So that's why I chose to do that. So .NET Restore, I don't think that I really changed anything other than set this. Maybe I even have working directory. Some of these have the ability to set the working directory, some of them don't. This one doesn't. .NET Build, I believe, does. Nope, it doesn't. So the .NET Build does the build command on it. Again, this path, and I'm telling it to do configuration release. .NET Publish then is running the publish command, and it's zipping up the published projects and add the project name to the published path. And it's doing configuration release and then output to the build artifact staging directory. So then the last task is to publish artifact drop, and this is basically just publishing the artifacts from the publish action to the build artifacts for this. So if we look at one of these that ran, this one's not as interesting because it's not. All right, so these are the standard tasks that run: prepare the job, initialize the agent, initialize job, check out. So this is where we started here, .NET Restore. And this is one reason why I like to separate this out. So the .NET Restore, if I were just to run .NET Build or .NET Publish, it would still have to do the restore step on its own, and this would result in like so much extra output. So it's nice just to have this in its own little output container so that we don't have to worry about. But that basically restores all of the uh, .NET uh, assemblies that are required to build this application. So the next step here is the .NET build, and this is nice to have in its own little thing, even though it's kind of small. But if it were to fail or have errors, they would, fill up this entire screen here with them possibly. So that's another reason why it's nice to have that separated from the restore and the publish task. But this is what actually is compiling the DLL that's used for the function project. So it's just outputting it to this standard area, and then the next task on this is to publish. So it's basically publishing to the to here. It's not doesn't have a whole lot of output as to what all was created, but it creates a zip file. The next thing here is this publish artifacts task. So it's just uploading that zip file that it created. And if we look at the do I not have access to the artifacts on this? Summary, there we go, artifacts, drop. If you look in this, you'll see that there is a source.zip, and that file is the result of the build and publish tasks. So that gets put in the build, and then the build is completed. So what happens next is a release on this. So I've got this Twitch stream notification release, and it's showing that I've got one pending. But let's see, this is, yeah, a little slow. So this one right here ran. Um, so let me show you how this is defined first. That's going to be easier. Go here to release and edit. So it takes in the artifact from the build um, that we just went over. I have it set to continuous deliver, but only for master branch activities. I don't want it to build every time or uh, you know, deploy every single time that I'm building from a feature branch or something like that. So I have that done there. Um, the production, so I'm only having one environment or one stage, and that's to deploy to production at this point. So the pre-deployment stuff on this is to have some pre-deployment approvals, and just, it's set to ask me to approve it. And that's just to, not automatically deploy it. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. After I have a lot of faith in my pipelines, I remove the approval gate, but I like to keep an approval gate in there at the beginning. But I do still have yet another artifact filter to make sure that it's coming from the master branch, just as some added uh, checks to make sure that it's only going to be deploying a master branch build. The stage then is production, and it's got a single task in it, and it is an Azure App Service Deploy task, and it's basically just deploying to this function app right here, and I just set the zip file. I didn't set anything else. It's all it does is take the zip file, and you have to tell it which subscription and app service to use. So it's kind of easy to set up a configure. This took like 3 minutes just to find it and add it in there. It's a ready-made task. So not real interesting as far as configuration of it goes. But you can look at the release that it did, and look at the agent job here. We can look at this task when it ran, and it's just, got a whole bunch of information here where it's deployed the application. So not extremely entertaining, but it is quite awesome, because when you look at the deployment center for the Azure function, when you use the Azure DevOps build and release pipeline, it gives you the source version, the build, and the release that was used to actually deploy this version that's running. So like these ones are the ones that I was doing from VS Code. So there's not a whole lot of information about that, so I can't really check back. So that's a really nice feature of doing it from here, is this links back to the release on that, so you can find out what release was used. If I wanted to, I could redeploy this release, and or if like I had multiple deployments here, I could choose one and go back to a previous one if I wanted to roll back or something like that. But it gives you the source version and the build as well, so that takes you to the source code as it was when it was done here, and then the build. So that's really neat. It's still working. I saw that the notification when I started streaming went out on Twitter, so that's a good sign. The add and remove pieces are working, and we can see this in the next piece of the build that I did today. So another build pipeline that I created is the Twitch stream notification subscription management build. If we look at the definition for this, it doesn't have a release pipeline, it's just a build pipeline because it's just for automation. And it's got a single task here that just runs that Twitch subscription registration PS1, which if we look back over here is, this piece of code right here. So that's going to get run. The only real thing on here is that I have an environment variable that I had to set, and I have to set it to the function code one. And the reason for that is that I'm using the variables, a variable group, and this variable group is using the Azure Key Vault to store the secrets. So this function code, which you need to actually authenticate against the endpoint, is stored in the Azure Key Vault, and the build retrieves it from the Azure Key Vault. And in order to make that available to a script task, you have to actually create an environment variable that calls this um, uh, build variable. Otherwise, any protected or secure variables don't get passed into the script. There's like another way you can do this for like the OAuth token. So like if you set this one, it will pass in the system access token build variable as an environment variable to script tasks. But if you want to do any other secure variable in the script task, you have to do it this way. So yeah, it's very simple. It just calls the PS1 and has this there. So it's not a real complicated one. There's also some triggers on this to ensure that it's only being automatically, so it's enabled for continuous integration, but it's only going to work with uh, commits to master and to changes to the subscription JSON. So we're going to ignore any changes to anything else for this and only run this automatically when something is changed in that subscriptions JSON. And if we look at the build when it runs, then this is the task, and you just get that output. So requested subscriptions, current subscriptions, and then queued for subscribe and queued for unsubscribe. So if we had any changes to that, it would come in through here, and we'd be able to see it. So I'm actually going to test a change of removing myself and adding myself just to validate the process here. But I also wanted to show back on this other build the triggers on it. So it's set to trigger only for commits to master and only when there's changes in the source directory. So we're ignoring any other kind of changes there, and only automatically building when there's changes to source, because I don't want README changes triggering a build and release pipeline. That's kind of overkill. Although I could, it is quite possible to have your project have dependencies on Markdown or something like that. So it's quite possible. The other thing that I did here is on the repo, on the branches, I set some branch policies on master. So basically I set it to require a minimum of one reviewer and allowing the users to approve their own changes, and that's because like I need to be able to I don't have somebody else on this project, so I need to be able to approve myself. I have it set to also reset code reviews whenever there's a new change. So whenever somebody's like done a pull request and they make an update, all of the previous votes, whether they've been approved or not, get reset. And I like that because I don't think that you should have a approve set and then somebody updates code that you haven't looked and then somebody completes the pull request. It just seems a little crazy to do it that way. I'm not enforcing a merge strategy, although I usually prefer squash merges, but I'm starting to see the light on squash merges not being uh, the end all be all. I think that they do make a lot of sense when you have a project that's not following really good commit uh, practices, but in this one, I'm not gonna try not using merge, enforcing squash merge. I can still squash merge during the merge process if I think that it deserves it, but I'm not gonna enforce it. I also have a build definition policy here, so it's gonna run that Twitch notification build uh, whenever the source is changed, um, and then it has to pass. So we run a build on the pull request and it has to pass the build. So I can't like make a bad code change and then submit it in. Ideally, there would also be some tests involved and it would have to pass those tests, but one step at a time. And then down here, I've set myself as a required reviewer. So the net effect of this is that you can no longer push directly on master. You have to do pull requests on everything to get changes into master, which is a good practice to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo the uh, subscriptions as code pipeline on here um, for subscription management, and we'll see how this works. So the first thing that I need to do, let me switch over to Git Bash here to do this because I like the output of it a little better. So I'm going to git checkout master. I'm going to git pull because I need to pull in the changes that have been merged from the most recent PR. And then I'm going to git checkout -b. I like to use IAC for infrastructure as code. I'm going to use CAC for configuration as code. So feature would be like adding, like I said yesterday, if I'm making code change, it would be in like feature /. I would also do like bug fixes and any basically code-based changes. But for um, uh, configuration changes, such as adding and removing a user from the config file, it would be done like this. So git checkout B CAC remove mark E. I'm gonna just use dash here. Mark E Kraus demo. All right, so switch back over to VS Code, and in the config here, in the subscriptions, I'm just going to remove me. And if we look at the diff here, we'll see that I'm no longer in the file. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this over here. Add stage change. Remove Mark E. Kraus. Commit. Commit anyways. I definitely don't want the changes that are in the Twitch client CS. That's probably just me accidentally adding white space somewhere. In fact, I'm going to close that out. Don't save. So I committed that. I'm going to push this up and switch back over to Firefox here so I can do a pull request. Go into the repo, pull requests. See that we've got, you have updated this, create a pull request. I'm good enough with the description. I don't need much. Just validating the code change. It shows that I was removed. So I'm going to go ahead and create this and approve it. And complete, and I'm going to delete the source branch after merging, complete the merge. That's awesome. So what happens next is that this pipeline will get fired off right here. So the script ran, and we got queued for unsubscribe. I'm listed there. Current subscriptions, I was listed as a current subscription, but I'm not listed in the requested subscriptions, so that's good. It's got me removed. If I am lucky, I might be able to see that it fired off here, but I doubt that. Like, this is almost always delayed and not working properly, so I've given up trying to yeah, depend on it. But anyways, it should be removed. Monitor. Yeah, so here it is removing. Whether this is even the correct one or not, but no, yeah, okay. It's yeah, so it's just going through all the steps there. Accepted, good. So yeah, subtopic. Yeah, so it's that did go through. Apparently, it seems to have worked. It's all good. I'm confused by my own output, but what else is new? So now let's demo adding it back. So this time I'm gonna do it through the let's do it through VS Code again. First we'll go to git bash and basically repeat git checkout master, git pull, git checkout B, add Marky Kraus demo, and then switch back over to VS Code and see if I can control Z. Yeah. Save it. We've got this in here. It shows me adding myself back in. On here, stage it. Add Marky Kraus. Commit. Git push. And go back to Firefox and take a look at the pull requests, and it should show that I've got a change, create a pull request. So it's just add. If I look at the code change, it shows that it's added. I'm adding myself back in. So I'm going to go ahead and create, approve, complete, make sure I delete the source branch, complete the merge, and then that build pipeline should be firing off again, and it is. All right, and since this goes by so fast, we'll have to open up here. So requested we see that I'm now in the requested ones, but I'm not listed anywhere in the current subscriptions. So it has me listed as queued for subscribe. So now if I look at the um, function here and the Twitch subscription ad monitor, maybe I'm lucky and I see one. This is where I was adding PowerShell Live. So mine's not on here yet. Like there's usually a delay, right? So I'm never lucky enough that it always shows up right. But this is the one where I was adding PowerShell Live, and that's what it looks like when it goes through. Never gonna be this lucky. Let's see. I run query in App Insights if I get lucky and it shows the current one. No, that's still not showing one. All right, so I said there's a delay on this. I probably could have started log stream and seen it there, but no need to worry. The results can be delayed up to 5 minutes like it says, so not exactly demo friendly. Right, so just looking at the Twitch subscription remove, I'm pretty sure that this correlates to the time now, yeah, because I'm -8 UTC, so that makes it 21:20 something UTC. So that's where it was removing me. It's this also, like when that happens, this X, always keep on hitting the wrong X up here. The other thing that it does is every single time these subscribes and unsubscribes happen, they also trigger a call to the Twitch webhook ingestion, right? Because the Twitch service will call back to the webhook saying that there was a yeah, so this is it saying like unsubscribe for me. It hit against the endpoint that had stream name Marky Kraus and Twitter name Marky Kraus and unsubscribe. So that was the unsubscribe action. Maybe now it's been enough time that the add one has shown up here, and it has. So this is where the steps aren't here yet. Yeah, so it still hasn't updated, but this is where it's it added them in, added me back in, and that will also result in another Twitch webhook ingestion call from the Twitch API, which should have a subscribe. This might be it. Yep, subscribe. So this is where it subscribed to me back. So yep, it's working. So that's Twitch subscriptions is code, man. Like configuration is code. It's idempotent, so I can run this again. So if I just do builds and just queue this build right off of master. So remember, master now has like me and everyone else that was previously in there. So there's no changes to it from the last time it ran. and you can see for sure that um, the requested subscriptions has me in it, the current subscriptions have me in it, and nothing was queued for subscribe or unsubscribe. So that's the entire process. Um, we've got this in a really good shape, I think. So I can make code changes now and properly release them out to the Azure functions. I can make configuration changes to who subscribe to, and it's going to be handled automatically. I can do it through pull requests, so I can actually open this up and allow people to uh, submit a pull request to add themselves to the registration on it. Um, or somebody else can start doing some code submissions to add some new features or something like that. So I think that it's in a pretty good shape. Uh, like if I really wanted to go really in depth on this, I would add testing and all kinds of stuff to that. But um, I think that for a little uh, holiday project, um, this is pretty good shape uh, to let it be, not go overboard on making it a full-blown thing. If for whatever reason it starts being popular, or if for whatever reason people start wanting to use this in a more general fashion and reusing it for their own purposes, then yeah, I'll have to consider adding tests and all that stuff and have to learn how I do that and um, consider about a test function instance. But I did want to thank Chris Gardner, Halbrad Ethan, whatever that K name is after that. But I want to thank him a lot for letting me use his Azure host so I can avoid the awkward work contract where if I use anything even remotely related to work, it could possibly be owned by them. So, not saying that they would do that, but I just don't want to risk it. And I appreciate Chris stepping in and providing me a subscription to work with. Um, and I definitely want to thank anybody else who has followed through this series and is watching it. I know that there's more activity on the VOD than there is on the actual live streams. So I applaud you for going through this hours and hours of content of me bashing my head against my own misspelling my name and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's it for now, and I'm sure that I'll be live streaming more stuff, probably more PowerShell related in the future, and less C sharp. But anyways, thanks for watching.